Hi everybody and welcome to the new edition of the ESEA Echo. I'm joined here today by my good friend Nok Vickers, who is the Inclusion and Diversity Officer at North Yorkshire County Council. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Nok, can you tell me a little bit about yourself first for people watching?
Yeah, so as Jean said, my name's Nok. Nok is a Lao name, it means bird. Sometimes people call me Nok Noi, which is little bird. I grew up in North Yorkshire in York, and I also now work at North Yorkshire Council, which is my first proper role in diversity and inclusion. A little bit about my personal background and sort of why I've chosen to work in diversity and inclusion, I guess. I feel like I have a pretty modern family in terms of how families come. Quite often when I go into the story, people have their mouths open by the end of it. But I guess I've just always been surrounded by different types of diversity in my family life, and so it's just sort of quite natural to me and led me to wanting to work in the sector.
Brilliant. And can you tell me how your love of food has helped you connect with your identity and the wider East and Southeast Asian community?
Yeah, so I think being mixed, I'm half Lao, half English, and my dad's Lao, he lives in Laos, sort of has always been there, and I grew up with my mum in the UK, so I think I've always felt as a mixed person quite disconnected from my Lao culture. Like I don't speak Lao, I'm not Buddhist. I sort of very much grew up with quite a British life, apart from externally looking quite Asian. And so I've always found a bit of difficulty in connecting to that identity, particularly when lots of other diaspora communities are perhaps bigger and stronger in the UK, and it's perhaps easier to sort of learn more about your culture or go to a language school and meet other people from your community. So I sort of had been wrestling maybe with those feelings of disconnect, and realised that without language there was one thing that I could sort of quite easily come to sort of learn about and connect with my culture, and that was food. Because I loved food. Also, everyone loves, well, if you don't love food, I don't know. You need to go to Laos and have some great food. But yeah, and I sort of thought back to my trips to Laos, and whenever I couldn't speak the language, the sort of moments where that didn't matter were when I was sat at the table eating food, and you can sort of see, people would see my enjoyment of the food, or you could just laugh about it, and it was sort of a communication in itself. And so yeah, I think that wanting to connect with a country very far away led me to YouTube videos, to learning about Lao cooking, to creating an Instagram account where I was sort of trialling out these recipes that I'd be learning online during lockdown. And yeah, it just sort of came about like that, really.
Yeah. So I guess that's what inspired you to start Nok's Wok, which is the Instagram account.
Yeah, well, I actually started it a few years before as more of Chinese cooking, because I studied Chinese at SOAS. I lived in China as a child and studied there, did an internship there, sort of was really into Chinese cooking, and it was mostly just a fun thing on the side, but mostly because I didn't want to spam my friends with pictures of my food. And then it was sort of in the pandemic that I tried to switch it more into learning about Lao food and more about sort of a page in itself, as in I interviewed a few people with Lao heritage. I also started selling chili oil, and getting involved in sort of the community things that were happening in London at the time. So yeah, that was the origins of it. Sadly, I think a lot of people came, I don't know about yourself, but during the pandemic a lot of people found community online, and for me it was a community that I didn't really know existed until that point, where everyone seemed to, I guess, be experiencing fear of what was happening out there and how it might be perceived. I know in London it was lots of people were quite nervous to walk down the street, and so lots of people just came online and found that sort of safety and people who had shared experiences, and that was really beautiful. And I know quite a few people who, you know, did start things like that, and unfortunately, as life has come back to, you know, full-time jobs and stuff, unfortunately you do lose the spare time that you had during furlough or whatever to really put lots of time into it. But I still feel like really grateful for the sort of connections that I made through it, and I keep saying I need to put more time into it, but then, you know, life just carries on being busy. But I'm hoping that 2023 is going to be a year of having, yes, more input on that, because I think I told you actually, I've just booked a trip to go back to Laos, and I'm really keen to use that platform to sort of show, you know, not behind the scenes, but I think lots of people have one experience going as like a backpacker or whatever. I'm quite excited to go and like learn some cooking from my family and maybe vlog it or share lots of videos while I'm out there, so hopefully that'll sort of come back and maybe grow a bit more community and meet some more people through it again.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, going back to what you said about finding that community online during the pandemic, I did a little bit as well. Not so much as what I look back on and think I would have liked to, because of other things that went on during my life at that time. But yeah, no, it was really good to see so many people coming together, all these organisations such as Be Seen and Voice ESEA as well, kind of springing up and taking action. That was really good to see as well. In hindsight, I wish I'd kind of done the same thing or joined them at an early stage, but it's really good to kind of meet them and still work with them in some capacity. And then you talk about going back home, you know, to Laos as well. So the same with me. So hopefully at some point in the future I'll get to go back to like Malaysia and things like that, but really kind of experience it as a kind of almost kind of a reformed, fully grown adult on my, not necessarily on my own, but without being seen as like going there as like someone just visiting family, doing other things as well. So that would be, you know, really good.
It's the same for me. It'll be the first time. It's like the last time I went, I was 19, so I don't really feel like I've been as the person I've grown into, like as an adult.
Exactly.
I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, I'm sure that the vlog will be really good as well. And of course, just share those pictures and videos and things like that, if you can. Going from that, what is your favourite type of EC food to cook or eat?
So there's two things that I really like to cook. So I think tofu lap, which is a really traditional Lao dish, which I make like a vegan version with tofu. But I think traditionally you can eat it with lots of different types of meat, but when I'm in Laos it's always meat, so I think I found it was quite nice to, you know, cook something at home that I could enjoy as well. Also I really like to host and feed people, and lots of people haven't really had it before, and so it's like a spicy tofu salad. You can serve it on, I usually serve it on lettuce leaves with sticky rice, and sticky rice is like a staple food in Lao, and you sort of use your hand, you don't really use cutlery, you use sticky rice as your cutlery to eat, so you would like take your sticky rice and use in a bowl and then use it to eat the tofu, and it has like a grainy, with like powdered rice. You like fry the rice, like dry fry, just hard rice, and then blend it up or pound it up, so it has like a bit of a crunchy texture. And yeah, I use lots of vegan fish sauce and stuff like that. So that's one that I love doing. It's also really easy and simple to cook, which is great when you have people over. Everyone's always like, you cook so quickly, but it's because I just purposely cook quick things. And then the other favourites of like more Chinese food that remind me of my childhood is egg and tomato, 西红柿炒鸡蛋, and 土豆丝, which is shredded potato, and smashed cucumber. So I think like those three things really, really remind me of my childhood, what we would eat just all the time going out. We were vegetarian, but yeah, they're just sort of like home cooking that I love doing, and again really quick, and I always like to do a big spread of everything and eat it like family style.
So coming up is Pi Mai, which is the Lao New Year. Some people might know it as Songkran, which is the Thai version. Can you tell me a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah, so it's Lao New Year. It's usually celebrated in April, around the 14th. And I think it marks the end of the dry season and the start of the rainy season. And it's like a water throwing festival, and that's a similarity that's throughout Southeast Asia. I think some parts of Vietnam celebrate it, Thailand celebrates it with water throwing, Burma and Myanmar they do as well, and I know this very southern region of China, in Yunnan, they celebrate it as well. And it's great fun. I think it's all about, as lots of festivals that happen in the spring throughout different religions, they're all about renewal and rebirth and stuff. And I think water is sort of about like cleansing and new starts. But it is so much fun. I mean, I've only been in Laos one time for it, so I can only speak for one experience when I was a child, but you literally walk down the street and it's just like the world's biggest water fight. I remember being in a restaurant and the waiters coming up behind us with like buckets of water and just tipping them over our heads. People with like water guns in the streets. Someone even shampooed my hair, like because you're just so wet, they just start like shampooing you. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. There are more sort of traditional and religious aspects to it as well, but I've sort of gone over the fact that I didn't really grow up in that culture, so for me that's not a huge part of it, although it is for everyone. It's like a national holiday. It's, you know, everyone goes to the temple and prays, but yeah, for me it's just sort of like a fun thing, a nice opportunity to share dinner with friends, to cook Lao food and sort of share my culture with my friends or family.
Yeah, when you talk about the water fights and everything, that's, you know, something that people here might think is more like just playing around or pranking somebody. Actually,
Yeah.
that's kind of a symbol of the rainy season and that refreshment of everything. So
and it really is like every single person participates, and there'll be a huge parade that goes through the street. With like monks, and yeah, it's not just a few people having like a water fight, it's just events, everyone joins in.
Wow. So how will you be celebrating it this year?
This year it falls around the same time as Easter, so I don't have any huge plans for it. I think I'll probably cook for some friends, as I said, make some laps, some sticky rice. There's someone that I met in London sort of through online, who she's Australian Lao, and a few years ago we celebrated together and she sort of taught me some cooking, and I ordered some beer Lao from the internet. Also in Lao people love beer Lao, like it's as cheap as water, and there's like a retailer online where you can order it. So I think there is actually I don't plan to go myself, but I think up Liverpool way there's a temple where there'll be some sort of celebration that I heard about last year, so I assume they're doing it again. And again in London, I think there's one at Temple there as well.
Yeah, that we can we'll find out those links and like put them out for some people that do want to go. So how has your identity helped you in your current role as an inclusion and diversity officer?
I think my identity has helped me because I know what it's like to grow up as a minority in a sort of white majority landscape. I work at North Yorkshire Council, and I think because I have that experience of growing up in Yorkshire, I share experiences with a lot of people. I think in some ways, like, North Yorkshire is extremely white, and it could be easy to think, well, there's not that many people there anyway. So, you know, is a lot of the work that you're doing about, you know, ethnic minorities, or is now some people are saying global majorities, the new terminology, I think.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people are surprised that there is a focus on that, but actually I think it is really important in areas where there is so few representation, that you really look after your staff that are from those backgrounds. Again, I think I come from a diverse family, so I grew up with same-sex parents for a long time, and you know, that continues very much to be my family setup. My brothers are also mixed race, but their donor dad is of British Jamaican heritage. So I think I've just always been surrounded by that diversity, and even though lots of those experiences aren't my own, I guess when you grow up around it, you have more understanding, or you're more passionate about, you know, the need for everyone to be able to just be their authentic selves. And I think that's what really drives me, is wanting to create a workplace, even in rural Yorkshire, where people, regardless of their sexuality or gender identity or, you know, colour of their skin, can really just be confident to be themselves. And I think also it's really important in diversity and inclusion. You can tell a lot by the people that are hired for those roles. I think it's really important to sort of put your money where your mouth is, and, you know, give those roles to people who have got minority experiences, because for people to see representation in roles is huge. You know, if we're thinking in terms of recruitment, you might have a look at who the diversity and inclusion officer is, and it says a lot if they are you know, visibly diverse, or they may not be visibly diverse, but they might have a profile which sort of tells you about their identity. So yeah, I think it allows me to connect more with the people I work with on a daily basis.
Yeah, I agree, and especially about that hiring for representation as well, but then still have organisations making sure that they are supporting them as well as they are supporting others. So obviously, with people like us that are doing work within diversity inclusion, it can be very sometimes triggering. It can be it can burn us out. All those sort of things, and you've got that kind of that duality of looking after people, but also yourself, and not overworking yourself too. So that is something that's really important.
I wanted to clarify, when I talk about hiring people, you know, potentially like me, into diversity and inclusion roles, especially if they're not into senior positions who have the authority to sort of push things forward, it's really important that the senior management and the wider organisation supports what that person is sort of pushing for, because you do get cases, you know, where you hire someone as a diversity inclusion officer to sort of tick a box, but in reality they're just there to sort of, you know, say that they're doing the work. And I think that's where it can become quite frustrating for people, when, you know, the things that they're flagging and pushing for our supported wider in the organisation, and I'm really lucky where I work, where I do think that there is genuine support there for diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, that's really good as well with what you're saying about it being North Yorkshire and everything. You might presume that they would, that it is just to tick a box, or that they're not so passionate about really doing the work to make North Yorkshire everything so diverse and inclusive. But that's really good that they are doing
And
that.
I also was drawn to, when I was sort of going through the interview process, I saw who was in the role prior to me, and it was a hijabi woman, and you know, I think seeing that, you go, oh, they are, you know, they are putting the people in the roles, and I think, yeah, it's again about representation, seeing people who represent certain sort of, certain experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. So what advice would you give to mixed race children growing up now, especially those from EC backgrounds, but not necessarily, and those that come from, like yourself, white majority areas, about when it comes to racism and overcoming that?
So one thing is that I hope in some ways it has got better. I know areas are increasingly becoming more diverse. We're having more and more conversations about diversity and about racism and white privilege, and you know, I would like to think, especially in the media, there is more representation. You know, there's still room for more, but I do think that there is a huge change in seeing people that look like us in major films or in adverts, which is something that I never saw growing up. Never saw any models or, you know, people in films of people that look like me. So I hope that from that perspective, young people now feel a bit more confident and seen and part of British culture. But I did also experience quite a lot of casual racism at school, and I think that that probably hasn't changed. I imagine that young people now might still hear the same slurs for Chinese people, sort of thrown around, maybe casually, I would say, in that it wasn't necessarily targeted bullying. It could be from people who were your friends, so you didn't necessarily feel like you could address it. And one thing I remember is being made fun of the shape of my eyes, and asking if I saw widescreen, jokes around the tsunami in Thailand. Well, that wasn't a joke, that one was a bully. But I think my advice would be, you know, later in life, I really let that get to me and really affect my self-confidence, and sort of really actually hated looking Asian for a long time and wanted to look small and blonde and petite, and it was only later in life that I sort of learned to embrace those things. And yeah, I would just say, you know, I think as you grow older, you will hopefully arrive at that point. I know lots of people that, you know, go through that struggle. It doesn't mean that you'll always feel like that. And also, I think it's really important to remember that the person saying the racist comments at you, whether they're, you know, about your appearance or your family life or whatever, they're not making it, it's not about you, it's not, don't take it personally. It's a racist comment which has been learned from, you know, decades of stereotypes and, you know, historical racism. Like, do not take it personally for how you look or how you should feel about yourself, because that's on the person that is being racist and on society, which sort of perpetuates and validates those sort of behaviours. I think another thing would be, as I was saying, you know, as you get older, you become more confident in your identity, you come to embrace it more. And another thing that really helped me on that journey was sort of finding friendships with other people who maybe they looked like me, or maybe they had similar experiences of being mixed, whether or not it was the same ethnicities. A lot of the time it wasn't, but I think that mixed experience is shared by so many people. The feeling of, you know, balancing two cultures, feeling like you're maybe not enough of one or you're not enough of either. So I think where you can, like, put yourself in environments where you can meet people. I know it's not always that easy, particularly if you are in very white majority areas, but as you grow up, like, take yourself out of those areas. No one's saying you have to stay. Like, I specifically went to London for university because I felt like I needed to be around a more diverse group of people, and I just think that experience and the people I met at university and the friends that I had from childhood, I sort of have always gravitated towards other mixed people. So yeah, make those friendships, try and join those communities online if you can, find people who are similar to you, and I think those people can bring you a lot of joy and help you on that journey of coming to sort of love your own identity. And I think the final piece of advice is to talk about it. I think it's really important. There's a lot of conversations at the moment around, you know, talking about your mental health in a way that I don't think there was when we were maybe at school. And I think going back to what I said about racism being seen as like casual racism, and it might be from your friends, or it might be, you know, you might tell someone, go, oh, they didn't, you know, they were just joking, or they didn't mean it badly. I think that can sort of discourage you from wanting to talk about it because it doesn't seem serious. But if it is affecting you, you should talk to your friends or your family, trusted teachers. I just think it's really important to sort of voice how it's making you feel, rather than just like keep it inside like many generations of people have.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really good pieces of advice there. So tell me a bit about any sort of events that you've got coming up that you're catering at, if there are any.
Yeah, so I think I am going to have a food stall at an event at the Carlton Club on the 23rd of April, organised by a friend of mine, May, who might know her on Instagram as Rice Over Everything, and she's doing a fundraiser for Burma and for, I mean, all the awful things that are happening there, and she has a lot of family and friends there still, so she's been doing some amazing fundraisers over the last couple of years. So I think I'll be there along with other ESEA sort of vendors from Manchester. But yeah, so I think it's at about 1 PM on the 23rd of April. I'll be doing live food, so yeah.
Great. And hopefully there will be an ESEA Heritage Month Festival in September that we're going to be doing, so hopefully with some vendors there, so we can talk about that at some point once those details have been finalised for everybody. And finally, are there any sort of ESEA eateries, restaurants, cafes and things like that in either the Greater Manchester area or all over the UK that you can recommend to people that are watching, like going to those places or from those places?
So it's not in Manchester, but if you're ever in London, there's a pub in Waterloo, and above it there's a Lao restaurant called PSV Cuisine, and I discovered it through Instagram, I think, and it's like super tucked away, and it's run by a Lao family, and it's really, really like authentic, amazing food, and yeah, I just love that it's run by a natural Lao family living in London, and it's all family run. The mum's in the kitchen, the daughter's on the desk, and yeah, it reminds me of Lao when I go. Other than that, in Manchester, there's quite a lot of places really. I love all the Vietnamese restaurants down in Ancoats opposite Wing Yip. I particularly like, I'm going to say it wrong, Cafe Viet. I think that's how you pronounce it. Cafe Viet, and there's a couple all sort of simultaneously along there. But yeah, that's really good. Who else?
Yes.
Oh, I love the restaurant above Taiwu, the Chinese supermarket.
Oh yeah,
I think it's like,
Taipan.
yeah, maybe. And they have a Cantonese dim sum menu, and they also have Sichuan menu as well, which is great because for me, lots of Cantonese food is very meat heavy, so there's not a lot that I can eat. So the fact that there's a Sichuan menu as well means you can go with people, they can get dim sum, I can get Sichuan food, and it is really good. And then you can pop down to the supermarket underneath.
Yeah, and there's also our good friends that run.
Oh, yes, Lab.
Yes, that
Yeah.
in East Disbury.
Yeah, that's great.
And then you know as well, Taste a Bet in Oxford. Have you been there before?
Yeah, I've been to Taste a Bet in Oxford. I think it's Julie and Yeshi, and they do amazing momos. And speaking of Tibetan food, if you're not going to go to Oxford, there's also a great one in Manchester and Chorlton. I think it's called Sunny. And it's called, Taste a Bet is Oxford. It's Tibetan Kitchen. And they also have like a pop-up in the park, Chorlton Park, I think it's called. And they do like amazing chai and momos, and it's great.
I think they've just opened one. I was just speaking to people from the Manchester Buddhist Centre, and they've just opened like a little kitchen as well, Tibetan kitchen. I think it might be the same people in the basement. So yeah, that's definitely going to have to check that out as well.
But going back to Yesla, so that's a really great place. And Zos is a friend of mine, and they did a big Kickstarter to open that place. And it's sort of inspired by Filipino cooking, which is where Zos's heritage is from. And it's a lovely place to just pop in for lunch. But she also does lots of really cool events there. So in the evenings you can do like kimchi workshops or cooking classes. So definitely look them up and see that sort of events schedule.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so thank you for watching if you did tune into the whole thing. And hopefully see you again next time.
Bye.
Bye.